Okay, Google, set an alarm for 6:55 p.m.
There, your alarm's set for 6:55 p.m.
That makes sense what I'm trying to say. All right, so I'm trying to pick and choose some that I think, like Ebenezer, for example, they have a full staff. They have the Arts Council that advertises stuff all over the place. Are they going to get school? Are they going to get as much out of it as a place like Reformation who could use a little bit of fun? You know what I mean? You guys are in a great location. If you know how to target some ads and you know how to do some things, it might help. You know, places like Christine out in where he's got a big old place across the street. They know what they're doing communications wise. Do you think it might help Christina to have a little extra on the communications? I think we do. But I mean, to at least understand, this is the stuff they're doing. The teachers I'm bringing in are those kind of people. Maybe you can learn something from them. And those are, we tend to be, I went to a conference a couple of years ago, and I was the only mainline person. And I was sitting at a table where one church brought their pastor and 5 communications people that got hired. Okay? There is yield. Yield. Oh, anyway, you do what you gotta do.
Spam this time of night.
All night. Every night.
You have to put down here if you don't come over here.
Well, if you're not coming down here, if nobody's coming physically to the building, I can go home. I can do it from home. But the problem then is you have people coming to the building. Unless somebody stays.
Well, let's be listening on operation and things that we don't have to do. Then we'll
We can revisit.
Okay.
Yeah, because
We don't really work with
it's the same four people all the time. I don't want to help them, but at some point. In 4 years, I've been staying late every other week.
Excuse you?
Howdy.
I thought I'd sit here a little closer to the camera.
You could be the star tonight.
I am.
Oh, okay.
I'm supposed to be
Good.
chapters 14 and 15. Do I look like
Ah.
14 and 15? What do you think?
Yeah.
Maybe 16.
No, that I've been kissed. I couldn't be 16.
Oh.
Hey.
That'd be our friend, the former bishop, who's got 16 and 17. He'll be
Oh, okay.
zooming in.
Oh. Oh.
Rick, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Yes, indeed.
Good.
Thank God for it. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. We had my 99-and-a-half-year-old father-in-law was here for a couple weeks, including Thanksgiving. In fact, my wife just took him halfway back today. Met her sister in LaGrange, Georgia, and her sister took him the rest of the way back home to Hattiesburg.
All right, okay. That's good. That's good. And Zeke, you've been doing good?
Yes.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
How about you, Leroy?
Doing good, doing good. Was able to go to the beach with my family, my daughter, and we just had a wonderful time just resting. Um, this would be my second Sunday not being at Reformations because we got a new pastor there now, so I'm free at last. Nick, did you ever talk to Herman?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
He'll be zooming in.
okay.
So that's nice. Zoom, zoom.
Okay, let's see here. All of this is your friend. You know tonight is our Zoom night.
Yes, sir. That's for the book.
That's for the book study, yes.
So at 6:30, right?
It is in a few minutes. Yes, we got about 4 minutes.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna hop on.
Okay, see you shortly.
Yeah, I'm in my office, so I'm gonna try to stay. That's why I stayed around, because right after that, I gotta make it home for a prayer meeting.
Okay, all right then. All right, we'll get on out and at 6:30. Okay, for you to make that. See you in a minute.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Danny Coon.
Hello there. Good to see
How
you
are you?
all. Doing well.
Good seeing you again.
Again. Yeah, I really enjoyed being at Reformation Sunday night.
Yeah, that was nice. That was really nice. Mhm.
Yeah, it was good. And there were a lot of people there happy to see you.
Yeah, well, that was wonderful. Yeah, my children just welcomed me. I felt real good about that.
Yeah. Well, it was heartwarming to see all the kids coming up to you there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Y'all had a good day today?
Had a good day.
Good.
I'm still resting.
Yeah.
Pretty soon that's gonna say that's enough. But right now I'm just taking it all in.
Well, good. You don't have any trips planned anywhere?
No, we just got back from the beach from the holiday, and
Yeah,
so that's not right. Maybe for Christmas with my children.
yeah. Well,
No,
that's good. Always good to be with family.
yes,
Oh, there's Herman.
yeah. Herman is here,
At least he's started. He's muted, and there his face comes.
and there. Hello,
Hey, guys.
Herman. How are you?
Hey, Herman.
Hello.
Good to see
Hey,
you.
Rick. Yep. Hi.
You're fortunate I'm not there in person because I'm a little bit under the weather.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
Well,
Yeah, well,
okay.
I can understand that. I
Leroy, I understand you've had a bout. You and Helen both. Is that correct?
That is correct, but we got over that thing. Yeah, Helen had it pretty tough, but I was okay.
I'm sorry. When did you come down with it?
Right. I went to the first part of the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had mine like the middle part of the month, and then Thanksgiving came, and my sweet little grandchildren gave me something else. So this is my
Uh,
second infection. This is my second infection in about 3 weeks. So I'm going to the doctor tomorrow morning.
uh,
Yeah.
No
so
fun.
have you tested for COVID, Herman?
Yes, I have. I know it's not that. Thank goodness.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right.
I'll tell you what, COVID's been going around. I've known
It
several
has been.
people that have had it recently.
Well, my youngest granddaughter had RSV, and I've had a vaccine for RSV, so I think this is an
Good.
offshoot of RSV.
I see.
I
Hmm.
don't know yet, but that's what I think it is. It's no
Yeah.
fun.
I'm sorry about that.
Sorry about
Uh,
that.
And there comes Bruce.
And there was
Good
Bruce.
evening.
Hello,
Hey,
Bruce.
Bruce.
How are you?
Hey, Bruce.
How was your day, Bruce?
Good.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Is Jackie going to join us?
I don't know. Haven't heard.
Well, we can give her 2 minutes. It's only just 6:30 and 15 seconds. So
Why don't we talk about our next meeting? I don't know that we have it scheduled or not.
We do not have a schedule, because we're moving on into January for the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so let's see. What you have in mind, Bruce?
Well, did we want to stay away from the second Tuesday or? I can't remember. I thought Jackie had a conflict on the second Tuesdays. Speak up, anybody else, if you have a conflict.
I'm gone the 15th through the 24th.
15th through the 24th. So you'll be there on the 14th.
I should be here on the 14th.
That's the second Sunday though, that you just now said,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if Jackie, I can't remember, well, this is the second Tuesday, and she's not here, but we've been having it on the second Tuesday, it looks like. So you
Yeah.
want to go with that? Want to go with the
Sure.
14th?
14th, okay.
Okay, and do we have a volunteer to lead it?
Okay, we don't have, and we will be moving, hopefully, we'll be moving close to the end of 17th. Herman and Zeke will be doing that. That takes us to the 18th, the 19th, and 20th. We need someone for those, the chapters 18th, 19th, and 20th. Need individuals for that.
And perhaps a little further if someone is willing.
And then we'll move from the 21st to the 2nd, 23rd. Need someone for that. And then to finish it, we'll go from 25 through the 28th. So
And when will the next meeting be
Well,
after the 14th?
The 14th.
The 14th will be the next meeting, and then
Well,
you
that'd
want
be
to set
11th.
another meeting after that?
If it's the second Tuesday, it's 11th of February.
February 11th. Okay. Let's step down. Okay, so then 2nd to the 14th. So you're saying moving from 14th to the
No, in February it'd be on the 11th. January is the 14th.
okay. Well, we've been doing twice a month, except for doing Christmas time.
Oh, well then I'm sorry. I'm not very good at remembering that. I'm glad you're here.
Okay, so 14th, Bruce,
Yeah,
are we gonna do two in January?
we can.
That will take us to the 28th.
Um, okay, so, okay. And it might be possible to finish up the book by the 11th of February. It
I
might be
think it will be.
possible.
Should be.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, if no one is going to volunteer, I will take the 14th of January.
Okay, January the 14th, and that would be 18th, 19th, and 20th.
I think I'd like to go a little further than that, but at least 4 or 5 chapters. But I'll look back and see how many are left. I know it's through 28,
Yeah.
and so I think between these 3 meetings, we should be all finished the book.
Okay, so then we're talking about the 28th, and then we're talking about okay, then that'd be February the 11th. And that would probably take us from 23 through 28. That's going to be pushing it with those chapters. Okay. It seems as if we could possibly get close to the finish on February the 11th.
Yep.
Okay, Bruce, do you have an announcement? Do you want to make an announcement about the trip? Not the trip, but the National Day of Racial Healing.
Yes. I will send it out to everybody. But it's going to be on the 21st of January. It's the day after Martin Luther King Day, and it's online. And I really can't explain it any better than that right now. I think it's 11 to
3.
3.
Three.
Okay,
Mhm.
our time.
Yeah.
And the Inclusiveness Network is going to join it, and then we're going to talk about application of that on the 23rd of January, which will be our meeting, our regular meeting. So I'll remind you all about that. But if you would mark your calendar for it.
Already signed up for
Unfortunately,
the 21st.
Herman, you're going to be away, but it
Yeah,
will be
I will be
online.
away for that. I'm gonna have to miss it. Sorry.
Well, it will be online if you can be online.
I'm gonna be in Costa Rica.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The tin can and the string just don't reach that far.
Yeah, they may not. But since I'll be there with my wife, she might not appreciate me saying, "Honey, I'm going to take this 4 hours to be on a day of racial reconciliation." She just might not take kindly to that.
You think?
Isn't that right, Helen? You agree with me, don't you?
I know she does.
I know Helen agrees
I
with
can
me.
answer for her.
Okay.
Okay. All right, then, I think that,
Time to
nobody else
begin.
has come in. I think we will turn it over to you. You give
Yes,
us a
from the
little
beginning.
blessing and,
Let's begin with a prayer. Gracious Father in heaven, your intention for us has been full of your grace. And you remind us of how we do not measure up. In this study, this book, help us to become all the more mindful of how we, in our humanity, make structures that put people down, and learn how, knowing what has been wrong in terms of putting people down, we might avoid them going forward. We appreciate the Son that you sent to us, whose birth we will soon celebrate yet again. May we continue to bring the joy and the grace of your love into the world that is racked by so many divisions and so many ways in which we fear the other. Give us respite from the fear, that we may bring hope to the world. We pray this in your holy name. Amen.
amen. Want to welcome, Alana McCauley.
Dr. McCauley, welcome.
Hey, Dr. McCauley, good to see you.
Greetings.
So here we are in chapter 14, and for 30 years, someone has been using the technology of his day called pamphleteering and printing newspaper articles. Do you remember the name of the person who we're going to be starting with tonight?
William Lloyd Garrison.
Yay, Garrison. This is about 1865, so the Civil War has come. There's the promise of a great big deal, but the chapter talks about how it was not such a done deal. The 14th and 15th Amendments were supposed to be a part of the healing. The 14th Amendment, which was the freeing of the slaves, got passed relatively quickly, but the 15th not so much, because the 15th was the right to vote. It says that race could not be a reason that you couldn't vote. So here's Garrison, after 30 years, finally retiring. He made a change. He in his way of doing things. I'm wondering what you remember was the change he said, because he was a gradualist in terms of abolition and what that means. What was his change here at the end of his career?
He withdrew. He kind of said, "That's it. My hands are. I'm finished."
Oh yeah, he retired. That's true. But as he retired, he took a new stance from it being a political issue to saying now it's a moral issue. Now the politics have been figured. We got the 14th and the 15th Amendment. So now it's just whether or not we have the moral will to see blacks in some new way, the former slaves. He also structured it as a fight between good and evil. And the evil nemesis that he pointed out was the president who came after the assassination of Lincoln, who didn't help much. Mr. Johnson.
Johnson Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson.
All he wanted to do is
placate white Southerns.
oh,
Placate white Southerners.
absolutely. He wanted to placate white Southerns
and put them back in power.
The Reconstruction was not going to last very long. The 15th Amendment was taking too long to get fully filled, so the black codes came along, and I think eventually they became the foundation of Jim Crow. KKK was rising. Can anything good come from this time period?
Nothing can come good out of the KKK and the Jim Crow and the Black Code law. Nothing that I see.
The only thing that came good out of that was the rise of the historic black colleges and universities.
So then, yeah, it was a reaction on.
I would say it came in spite of it, not because of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you agree with that, Zeke?
Oh, they worked hard to have those, because they were being barred. I mean, USC, right after Civil War, for a short time, it was integrated, but that didn't last very long at all. And then it didn't get fixed again until the 70s. So, yeah, these things are hard to kill. The next
so you're saying that because of what was going on, then we had the rise of historical black colleges, and we had politicians, black politicians, getting involved also. So it means that in reaction to what they've done, they were trying to get something done for the black community. Is that correct?
They were doing their best, but the Reconstruction, carpetbaggers, they were pretty poor representatives of anything about getting the South. And almost immediately, while there were many new blacks in leadership roles, it didn't take long and they were being eliminated. They did not have the cachet to stand. Whites continued, because of KKK, whites continued to be the powers. And we get to chapter 15. This is like the next 40 years between the end of the Civil War and we have two journeys for freedom, and they were represented by two different well-known folks. Who are they? Du Bois.
Yeah, Du Bois and Washington.
I took French. Du Bois, yes. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. Two different journeys. Do you remember the contrast between the two? What did Du Bois say was the way to get real power and freedom?
Is to become like white people, assimilate.
Yeah, and be smarter.
That's right.
As smart as them. And in part, that became that because he grew up in the North and in an integrated family, and he was a mulatto, mixed race, means that it was possible for him to be that smart. Had to be the white side. I don't know. This is really rude to talk like this, but that's how people saw him.
Okay, that's how people saw him, and that's the way they were thinking.
Yes.
Okay.
He just said, I'm just as smart, I'll show you. And he went to Fisk, which was the best of the black colleges. And then he got his doctorate from Harvard, the best of the white guys.
That's all right. But of course, now he wanted to go to Harvard in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
But he couldn't go because he was mulatto,
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
And of course, now the other interesting thing about that is how did he get the money to go?
I don't think I read anything about that.
The community sent him, didn't they?
The white community gathered and raised money to send him to Fisk, which is the top black university.
I see. If he couldn't go to Harvard, let's make sure he goes to the best. Oh my.
Yes.
Oh. This really makes me angry to learn this part of the history.
Oh my goodness. And the other good part about that is that he wanted to go there in the beginning, but then once he graduated from Fisk, then he was able to go to Harvard.
Yeah, they couldn't say no.
But then of course, now you said Harvard. This is our Ivy League college, and then why couldn't he go to Harvard?
Well, he went. He graduated from Harvard.
But he wanted to go in the beginning. He couldn't go because he was black.
Yes.
And actually, the school was started based on the fact that blacks couldn't go.
Yes. But they could build all the buildings. I understand that that's the heritage that Harvard is sort of embarrassed to be able to admit these days.
Yes. Any comments?
So
Carry on.
Du Bois said, be as smart as the white people. Assimilate. What was Booker T. Washington's way of doing it? How did he encourage people to make lives better?
Basically the same, except there was the difference. He wanted people to not menial jobs, but to do agriculture and then use your hands to rise up. Whereas the other one was saying, I'm going to be as smart as. He's saying you can take the lower jobs.
Well, to get a trade,
yes,
do your best, do even better than the best, and that'll just show them, I mean, white people, that they're not to be feared. They aren't savages. All those things that have been and continue to be a part of what makes racism such a terrible scourge in the world. They also looked for a white savior. The white savior was Teddy Roosevelt. He became president in 1901 after McKinley was assassinated. And it didn't go that well, though. Because it was at the Spanish-American War that the troops came home. Oh no, I'm mixing another chapter. Never mind that. But he didn't do his, he wasn't good as Teddy in the end, and so Booker T. Washington's his star faded. And those are my notes. Let me see if I wanted to say something more. Washington still was a person who said, you got to know your place, and it's near the bottom.
Yes.
That's unfortunate. And
you know, I was thinking when you were saying Washington, so you got to know your place. Suppose a black didn't know his place, what would happen to him?
Well, the KKK would come.
KKK would come and put him in prison.
Billie Holiday was sang the song "Strange Fruit."
And they would kill him.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, I think that what he was doing and saying is that here we need to educate ourselves.
Yes.
But we cannot just try to take over because it will not work.
Well,
recording in progress.
That's true. He was just as smart like Du Bois, but if the blacks weren't able to succeed, he blamed them as victims. You weren't trying hard enough.
And I think that there was a difference the boys and what is the 10
Yes,
the
he had a list of, there'd be a 10%
yeah
that would
10%.
just shine, and the skill of those really great intellectual minds would make all the difference in the world. But he ended up having to go to Europe.
Had to go to Europe, but that 10% were those mulattoes. So they
Yes.
were the light-skinned blacks.
Yes.
And so they had a chance because they could go to some of the schools and stuff like that. But
I looked up the caste system in India before coming here because I was curious as to if that was still such a prevalent thing. Even though it was outlawed in the 50s, it still is a social barrier caste system in India, despite the fact that it's illegal. So I think the big sin is the lies we tell each other. The white state lies about the black, try to find a way to be human when the whites seem to have the power to say you're not human. And they enforce it with societal rules, real laws, but somehow veiled laws that keep things. You don't have slavery unless you can't, you incarcerate someone and they can work. That's not slavery, except that became the chain gangs of the early 20th century.
so you have a new kind of slavery.
Yeah.
Yes. And what about today, y'all? Do we still have that kind of thing going on today? Yes. Herman, I see you shaking your head.
That's the sad thing about reading this book. It sheds light on what we're still doing today and how we're doing it. You know, it's in some ways it's less obvious, but it's still a system that's designed to put whites ahead of blacks at every level, government, education, whatever. You know, in my opinion, you did leave off one thing I thought was interesting, though, Zach, if I may comment. Ida Wells.
Yes.
Didn't she live in South Carolina? Am I confusing her with somebody else?
Yeah. No. But she's originally from Holly Springs, Mississippi.
Right. But did she come and retire or live a while in Columbia? I don't know. Maybe not. But she was an investigative journalist, and she
Right.
corrected both Du Bois and Washington to talk about how Southern horrors and the lynch law, and she refused to blame blacks for their condition. She did not fall into that. It must be their fault. So she had the courage to stand up and do investigative journalism. I thought she was a real hero and a bright light in this chapel and someone in this chapter and someone that we needed to lift up.
Thanks for
matter of fact, we
Yeah.
see that Du Bois and Booker T. Washington seem to be anti each other, although they were working for the same thing. But then we came in and Ida B. Wells decided to say, this is the way it is. And she straightened both of them out. And
well, they each took their journey. They each had their path. But it as Ida Wells pointed out, you're both, the exclusiveness of your path is an error. There's got to be more to it than that. Because if you blame the other person as to why it is that it's not working, Du Bois' way or Washington's way, there is a way.
Okay.
Women empowerment.
And there's another person, I don't know whether you've gotten to him yet, but Franz Boas. And Boas was from Germany.
Oh, he pulled everything back because wasn't he the one that re-upped the whole business of there's some kind of genetic problem?
No, he was from Germany.
Yeah.
And because of the anti-Jewish persecution. And then he came to America and saw how they were treated, and he said, "Look, the blacks were treated almost just like the Jews." And therefore he spoke up at Atlantic University with W.E.D. Boers, and he said that this is false what you're saying about blacks.
Right.
African history was one of empires. We had the Ghana Empire, the Mali, and the Songhai, and the Intellectual. Matter of fact, I think Budweiser did Kings of Africa, and he named some of those.
Well, but in the end, he still said that black people were naturally inferior, even though they had that going in Africa. He
Not Boers.
yeah.
Not Boaz.
Was affirmed that the idea that black people were naturally inferior, or oh, I'm sorry, I didn't read to the end of the sentence. Never mind. I sit chastised by my own reading. Yes, that's new learning for me, that there were these grand kingdoms
Yeah.
in
Okay.
Africa. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's all the more shameful. I even have done very casual reading that some of the kingdoms decided to overcome the other kingdom by selling their enemies into the slavery that have been here and in the Bahamas and wherever.
Actually, it was a way of life. You know, you conquer your enemy and you enslave them, but you don't keep them enslaved for life.
Yeah.
This is an American way, enslaved for life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Macaulay, we're talking about Africa now.
Yeah, and I wanted to go back to the philosophical difference between W.E.B. Du Bois and Washington. Some folk are still of the persuasion that W.E. Du Bois' stance was the right way. Others frowned on it and they thought Booker T. Washington his stance was the best. There is still some inconclusivity as to the two views regarding the philosophy of how we dismantle racism and so forth within the American mainstream. And I'm glad Bishop Yo said it. It's sad, but some of those things in the 1800s, for which those gentlemen fought, even with divergent view, are still prevalent today. Hendrick Manu Turner, who was a chaplain in Georgia in the legislature, was one of those persons who has similar view like W.E.B. Du Bois. No, we're gonna stay here. We're gonna rub shoulder with the white man. Marcus Garvey had a different view. No, if life is very uncomfortable for us, we got to go back to Africa. But we know that's our lineage, that's our roots. And you have these opposing views, and I think you said it, Reverend Kenner. Both gentlemen wanted the same thing, just that they were on different wavelengths. And so as we look at these two gentlemen, even in light of what's happening today, here we have the incoming president. He's thinking about usurping white supremacy ideology once again, want to abolish naturalized citizen, because he believes is contingent upon that a lot of how you call it, undocumented immigrants are coming to the country.
just
So,
kids.
so just what Bishop Yo said, it's sad, but over 200 years we are going back to where we came from. You know, so the fight between the philosophy of these two gentlemen, Booker T and W.E. Du Bois, while they may have divergent views, they were all seeking for the same emancipation. They wanted Black folk to be acclaimed. They wanted it to be validated. One of the reasons my country was established was because of these two philosophies. There were folk who said, no, life is very hard, Bishop, you're weak. So black folks said, we need to go back. This is our home. We know where we come from. So the slaves were expatriated to establish a homeland called Liberia, a land of liberty. And that's how the West African country that has more of an American culture than any other country in Africa, that's how it was established. Because folks said, well, you know what, let's forget this white man land, let's go back. And Booker T have that same view. If we don't, let's take the back door. W.E. Du Bois said, no, let's rub shoulder with them. But you see, the privilege he had, the other folk didn't have it. And the pigmentation determine where you stand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for that one.
Even in West Africa, Reverend Cannon, in Liberia, where I grew up from, the darker your skin, you're in the back.
In the back, at home.
The lighter your skin, you are front.
Okay.
Which says just how pervasive these attitudes about whites being superior and how that has tainted our understanding of human nature and has blinded us to see things falsely that we should have never seen falsely. And it's rearing its ugly head again today.
Yeah.
With white Christian nationalism.
Okay. Well, as I said, I sit corrected, and let's move on to chapter 16.
All right, chapter 16.
All right.
I think the overarching question for us to keep in the back of our minds and to discuss when we get through with this chapter is how does racism get reflected in the cultural entertainment world in the early 19th century? And how are racial stereotypes still being reinforced in today's time? So first, how were they doing it back in that early at beginning of the 20th century is actually, we're talking about the 1900s, early 1900s, and how they're being reinforced today. And to do that, we need to take a look at a cultural hero, a black boxer named Jack Johnson, and I want you to tell me what you can about why he was a cultural hero. Who was he, and why did he matter, and why is he being mentioned in a chapter like this?
Hey.
I'll tell him,
see. He knocked out the white man.
Not one. He knocked out every white man he battled against.
Well,
he was undefeated.
So it became the thing. He knocked out the white man. But that put a target on his back in the end.
It did. He was a heavyweight champion of the world when he won his title over Tommy Burns. And so he actually won that title. And then they tried to raise the Great White Hope, which was a fellow named James Jefferson, who was called the Great White Hope because they had to find a white man that could beat him. And the Great White Hope came out of retirement and he lost. So finally what they did, since they couldn't beat him physically, they couldn't find a white man that could beat him, they filed some false charges and got him arrested, and he fled the country. Then he later served a year in time, and that was the end of his career. But what's significant is how he rose to a cultural position that infuriated white Americans because he was married to a white woman. He wore furs and diamond rings and had a life of luxury and ease, and it just absolutely rubbed white men particularly the wrong way. And so that was a why. That was a racist stereotype. And how did the white people explain this guy's obvious superior power? How did they explain it? What was the racial stereotype they used to explain it? They invented another one. Well, he's got those athlete genes in him, or those dance genes, or those black genes in him that just make him a better athlete. White people can't fight with that. That's just how they're born and raised. And so
we can't dance either like them.
What's that?
We can't dance either.
Yeah, we can't dance, and we can't. It's just that's just white men think better. We have better minds. Black men fight better. That's just how it is. So it reinforced the prejudice and stereotypes of their day. That was a part of that. Now, before I get to Tarzan, because we'll get to Tarzan, I want to ask you how, if anything, do you see some of this taking place today?
Oh, just when I was in seminary, one of my part-time jobs was refereeing high school basketball. And I hated the places I hated to be assigned were private schools, because in South Carolina, private schools, especially in the 90s, were all white. And the kids, especially the boys, their parents sent them there because they assumed that they could not play basketball at the public school because they weren't going to be as good as the black players. And so if you called a foul on their white son, they'd scream obscenities at you. But you know, these folks just assumed that they couldn't, their white kids couldn't play as well as the African American basketball players. And I think that's
who are some black
still
boxers who are some black boxers that have kind of been a part of Jack Johnson's mode in the last 25 years that have stood out because of their prowess?
Muhammad Ali.
Anybody remember what happened to Muhammad Ali?
He ended up in prison.
Yeah, because he didn't do the draft thing the way they wanted him to, but he was offensive to whites, and whites couldn't stand, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and so he ran into a lot of white cultural hate and prejudice, and did eventually go to prison on trumped up charges, kind of like Jack Johnson did. Anybody else come to mind as some ways that we've seen some of these cultural battles of entertainers play out?
The thing about that is that he became extremely famous.
He did.
All right, and being famous in a white world just wasn't going to work. Being famous in a white world, you had other black children and black men and black women looking at him and saying that I can do the same thing. So what would it mean then is that I'm not going to sit back and just let you take it. I'm going to rise up also. I can be important also. So they look at him as an icon.
Oh, there she is.
Christmas party.
Hey, Jackie.
Neighborhood Christmas party.
Welcome, welcome. All right.
So I said I broke out of there so I
right.
could make the last minute of our study. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, Rev, what we're doing?
We're talking about
16.
Jack Johnson, yes.
Jack Johnson and Muhammad Ali. Now, I want to do the flip side. To the black community, what was good about seeing these black cultural heroes being able to beat white men? What was good about that? What was affirming? So,
So see, it was before my time, and I didn't know about it.
Jack Johnson.
About Jack Johnson. And
Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, it was like victory for the race.
Yeah. And blacks could say, there's somebody I can look up to who doesn't take crap off any white folks.
And can beat a white person.
And he can beat them. He can physically beat them into submission. And he's the best there is. He's the champ. And so it gave a kind of vicarious sense of superiority, or at least adequacy, or at least a boost to the black psyche. And that was a good thing in itself.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Any other way you want to comment on how we see some of this tension between black cultural heroes and white cultural heroes, entertainment or boxing or sports, or any other way you want to comment or make any applications of this?
I guess what happened to Jack Johnson happened to Muhammad Ali, that he had to go out of town and got out of the country. And Jack had to go out of the country also. Certainly, he had to go because he had a white wife.
I don't know how he got away with getting a white wife back there in that time.
In the early 1900s, that was absolutely very offensive to the white community. You're right.
Here I'm thinking that all of a sudden there's a flux of it only in my time with white celebrity male, black celebrity male and white wife. Because that's all exists. That's all I see in my time. And when I looked and saw that, here this boxer, Jack Johnson, the hero of the race, how did that happen? I'm shocked at that was allowed.
Well, it may have been allowed only because nobody would touch him
Right.
because he'd knock him out.
That's so he could have him around. So apparently there was no law in that particular state, because see, there were laws
Oh, yeah.
that you could not interracial marry.
May have come into being because of that.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I'm
But
not.
And notice he had to fight his title fight in Australia, not in America, because America would not have allowed him to win the world title. I mean, Australia allowed him to have that title fight. America would not have.
That's right. And speaking of that, when the author made that pun about, and he beat the guy down under.
Yeah.
Bad joke. Bad joke.
Yeah.
Bad joke.
And the other thing about it is that they got him for taking his wife across state lines.
Straight. Yeah.
Oh, that was
they called it a prostitution violation.
That right. Okay.
Even though she was his wife, but they got it on a prostitution violation.
Prostitution, taking a white woman across the state line. Yes.
That was how they got him.
That's how they got him.
Okay.
But he stayed away 7 years, came back and did a year.
Yeah. And that was in the 1900s, the early 1900s.
Yeah.
All right. Since the white athletes, the white boxers couldn't beat up on Jack Johnson, what did a white author invent to try to keep blacks in their place and to promote white superiority? What did a white author decide to write?
About
Tarzan
of the apes.
I'll give you a hint.
Tarzan of the apes.
It was Edward Burroughs. Is that was his name?
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
And I grew up as a little girl loving Tarzan, the show Tarzan, Me Tarzan, You Jane, and he was the hero of the jungle.
Yeah.
And here I learned that this is how Tarzan. And we loved seeing Tarzan too, and we did the
Yeah. Same here, unfortunately.
Hanging on vines that grow in the forest.
How were the black folks in the movies of Tarzan treated? What were their characteristics? What did they contribute to the movie?
Were they savages or were they still?
They were absolute savages.
They were some of the savages still.
Savages, and had someone to watch.
Many of them were cannibals. Many of them were just the worst of the worst. And always Tarzan by himself would defeat a whole tribe of black soldiers, black warriors.
And as a little black child growing up, guess who was still your idolized hero? Tarzan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at that. How strange. Yeah.
Kind of scary when you think about it, isn't it, Jackie?
Yes.
I wonder why did you like Tarzan?
He was a man of the jungle, and he would swing from trees, and he could beat up all the people, even if they were Africans. Look at a child's mind. He's the hero. He's a white man, but he's a hero. I didn't see race. I just saw the hero man.
I agree. I was not, but it planted thoughts in our heads about race that we were not aware of. We thought it was an action show and great violence and swinging through the vines. And it was not. It was a subtle way to put blacks in their place and keep them in their place and to result in white superiority. Because after all, Tarzan taught himself how to read. Think about that. Yeah. My wife's a reading specialist. She teaches kids how to read all the time. No kid I know teaches themselves how to read. Now some are a little quicker at it than others, but nobody teaches themselves how to read.
Well, the closest you come is if your dad reads to you every night before you go to sleep. They then go through the pages and they remember the sounds and they start seeing the words.
Sure, but that's not learning by yourself. That's a dad that reads to you every night.
That's right. Yeah. That ain't learning by yourself. That's learning from dads.
I realize.
Yeah, well, there's the difference.
Let's open your books to page. Open your books to page 132.
Okay.
And we're going to read 132.
Yeah.
The second paragraph down. But the end of Jack Johnson wasn't enough. That sentence, and let's read down to the. To the 9 points he makes. Someone start at but the end of Jack Johnson still wasn't enough.
But the end of Jack Johnson still wasn't enough to make white men feel good about themselves. So a man named Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote a book to reinforce the idea of white supremacy and to remind white men that Africans, black people, were savages. And that was called Tarzan of the Apes.
Apes.
Keep going.
Okay, here are the basic plot lines. A white child named John Clayton is orphaned in Central Africa. He is raised by apes. They change his name to Tarzan, which means white skin. Tarzan becomes the best hunter and warrior, better than all the Africans. See, there's that white skin moving to the front.
Okay.
Yep.
Eventually, he teaches himself to read.
I'll take over from here.
Okay.
In the sequels and subsequent stories, Tarzan protects a white woman named Jane from being ravished by Africans. 7. Tarzan protects a white woman named Jane from being ravished by Africans. Number 8. Tarzan protects a white woman named Jane from being ravished by Africans.
What's the point? What's the point our author's making?
Get it?
It's a formula that's working.
It's a formula that sells, that's for sure. It's a formula that makes a lot of money because it's what the white majority would like to believe, that Africans are savage and white and black Africans want to ravage white women, and that's
right.
ugly lie behind the story, and it's still used a lot today. It's still an underlying myth.
Absolutely. My father, there was a white farmer that we worked for every summer. We would do the tobacco. We would put in what's called tobacco for this particular white man. And my dad used to say, I can't believe I let my children work for this racist white man. He said, because this man didn't like Martin Luther King's teaching, because he said, all he's trying to do is get the black men near our white women. If we get this integration that this man is shooting for, it's just so the black men can have our white women. That was what my dad, this man told him.
Yeah.
Okay?
And what was the number one lie that was told most often to justify a black lynching, the lynching of a black?
That he'd break the white woman.
That he or she said something inappropriate, made a pass, raped, did something immoral, when, most of the time there was not a shred of truth to that, but it became an excuse to lynch a black man.
Yep.
Yeah, anything he did that was uppity, that was enough.
Anybody been to the lynching museum?
No, I haven't.
I've
seen
Yes.
it.
Danny, what was it like to walk around there and see all those huge columns?
Yeah.
Danny?
Just a sad thing, It's just hard to believe.
Yeah. When we went last month, I think what I made note of was that the latest lynching was in the
50s.
1950s or 1960s. It was very recent.
Yep. I think 58, and I think it might have been in Greenville, but I might be wrong about that. Don't quote me.
Right.
But surprisingly recent.
Yeah, it was. True.
There's have you all been reading in the state newspaper over the past year about Willie Leapart?
No.
You haven't?
What's going on?
Oh, so he was an African-American man, I guess back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, that
you can see it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
That allegedly had raped a white woman, and he was lynched. And before he ever went to trial, had a free trial. So there's a guy by the name of Mike Burgess who works at River Bluff High School. He's a history teacher, and he's been doing a lot of research on this and is trying to get the record straight about Willie Leapart. And there's a movement to take it to court here within the next first part of this coming year. A story you might want to follow, but
Yes.
It's been in the state newspaper a good bit.
William Leapart.
Willie Leapart.
And he's being defended now as being falsely accused. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what they want to bring up to the solicitor's office, I believe, to get his record exonerated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. I hadn't seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that took place here in Lexington County.
I appreciate you raising that and bringing that up. It always helps to hear situations happening today that reflect either a righting of a wrong or how the wrong continues. That helps us
Right.
see how we are products of our past and how the past continues to influence us. Let's go on to our next chapter, chapter 17. The birth of a nation and a new nuance, new nuisance, excuse me. This chapter is how politicians, I know this is going to sound really strange to you. You might even find this hard to believe. Politicians, even in the early 1900s, made empty promises to get the black vote and ignored their promises once they were elected. Doesn't that sound strange?
Oh,
Uh-huh.
goodness.
Oh, my goodness.
How in the world?
All right. So it really is about sort of how the racial dynamics in our country continue to affect politics and the politician, and how over and over again blacks were disappointed in the leaders because the leaders that they helped elect would turn their backs on them once they got into power.
Uh-huh.
All right, for a minute, let's review who was the Republican Party back in the early 1900s and who were the Democratic Party, what they stand for.
Right. Okay.
Well, Republicans were in the North and they wanted equality.
So, I mean, not 100% equality, but they leaned more
No.
towards equality.
They were more liberal.
They were more liberal.
Yeah,
They were more pro-civil rights.
Next to mine, just not mine.
Yeah, they were pro-civil rights.
Yeah. And who were the Democrats? What they stand for?
Now they were Southerners.
They were segregationists.
Segregationists, and
They were.
they didn't want the government to have any power whatsoever. They wanted to have slaves too.
Yeah.
They were for states' rights and for states to dominate the federal government instead of the federal government have any rule over the states. And they were they looked very favorably upon white Southerners who wanted to remain in power and enact Jim Crow laws. And they sort of looked the other way and let these Jim Crow laws get enacted. Kind of just the flip flop of what the parties are today, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a flip flop.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you look on page 136,
Uh-huh.
I believe it's 136. Yes. Start at the second paragraph back to Woodrow Wilson. And let's read down to the first paragraph at the top of the next page, and anyone can read, and someone can stop in the middle and somebody else can take over. Danny, would you start there?
Sure. Anyway, back to Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, back to Woodrow Wilson. He was a Democrat, and during his first term, he let black people know that he thought what he thought about them by enjoying the first ever film screening in the White House of Hollywood's first blockbuster film, W.D. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. The film was based on a book called The Klansman. Can you guess what this movie was about? Here's the basic plot. A black man, played by a white man in blackface, tries to rape a white woman. She jumps off a cliff and kills herself. Klansmen avenge her death. The end.
Now, does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And the irony or sadness is this was shown in the White House, and I believe it was Woodrow Wilson that said, "That's the best American movie I've ever seen."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
In the bigger version of the book, there's a spot in there that it says when that film was first shown in Houston, Texas, the crowd, all white crowd stood up and started yelling after the woman jumped off the cliff to kill herself. They all jumped up and started yelling, "Lynch him, lynch him."
Mm.
Wow.
They were cheering to have the guy lynched right then and there.
Wow.
Wow.
and didn't Woodrow Wilson grow up here in Columbia?
I think he did.
He has
I
a
think he has a South
boyhood
Carolina
home.
connection.
His boyhood home.
Yeah, the boyhood home, yeah.
It's
Originally
it
from
might be
Virginia.
something our group might want to visit sometimes because it's about Reconstruction. And it doesn't really focus on Woodrow Wilson as much as the time period when Woodrow Wilson lived here in Columbia. It's a great museum. I'd encourage you all to visit it.
Yeah, good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about for a minute the cultural impact of this movie, The Birth of a Nation. There are basically three, I would say, cultural realities that came out of it. We've lightly touched on them, but what's at least one of those that impact this movie had? Who did it embolden?
The whites.
The whites.
Right.
Klansmen particularly, but
Especially, yeah.
it
Oh my
emboldened white supremacy,
Yes.
and it emboldened the KKK to
That's
do
right.
whatever the heck they wanted to, whenever they wanted to, without impunity,
That's right.
and emboldened them to tell lies in order to get it done.
Hmm.
It reinforced the stereotype of black men as being all rapists who lust after white women and just that's their number one thing they think of day in and day night. It reinforced that negative, hurtful stereotype about black men. But here's the thing that was sort of news to me, and it wasn't just this movie, but this movie was a big part of it. And how this movie and other movies like it and the cultural impact led to the great exodus of black families moving to the north in droves.
Yes. Yes.
And that black exodus was a hurtful thing in that blacks were forced to kind of leave the South with their homeland, their ancestral homeland, because the Jim Crow laws were so bad and the lynchings were so bad, even though they were all over the nation, but they were more predominantly in the South.
I lived in 1975. The only way I could get a white collar job or not working in the field as an African American, I had to go north so that I could get a job. But
in 1975, Jackie?
In 75.
And where'd you go?
To Connecticut.
Yeah.
Worked with the post office, the telephone company, got all kind of good jobs and everything. Never could have gotten them down here in the South.
Huh.
Not during that time.
Not during that time. So, yep, I'm a product of that, moving north to get good work and get a good job, have a life.
And the thing about that is that black people are the ones, a reason that he was really elected, because they voted for him.
Yep.
And helped him to get there. And as soon as he got in, this is the payback.
Yep. And just to share with my white brothers, lots of times in the black race, you can run into African Americans, I'll use it interchangeably, blacks or white, black or African American, that will say, I'll never, now you can't trust anybody per se, but they'll say, you can't trust a white person. They can be your friend and they can smile in your face and they can act like they love you, but when it comes down to it, they will turn their back on you and let you down every time. And they believe that with their whole heart. I don't believe that with my whole heart. You see what I'm saying? And I got friends will not befriend white because they do not trust a white person being honest and turning their back on them at some point. Now, this author here is bringing it out how bad it was back then. And still today, I wouldn't say that you can't trust a white person, but I might have black friends and colleagues that feel that way, and there's no change.
Yeah, and it's good you brought it up. You're right. Even in the church's circle, the same sentiments still exist. But I also remind people, Pastor Jackie, that the march to Spelman Bridge was not Martin Luther King Jr. alone. There were a bunch of white folk who were in that march. And we cannot ignore that. But that's this. I don't want to use a stereotype, but this mindset that you can't trust white people.
That's right.
To some extent, and it's not true. I
agree.
It's not
true. It's not true.
I agree with you.
Not true.
You know, even we go back in modernity. Now we're talking about 2008. It was not too far when the first black men were elected president of this country. It was not black folk alone who elected him, and we got to face the reality. There are goodwill white people who are not the Christian nationalists Bishop Yo referenced earlier. You got goodwill people. Even though Mr. 47 said there are good people on both sides, I disagree with his, but there are goodwill people.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a fallacy for us to lump that kind of, a number of people. But before we close, I wanted to remind you all there's a book. It's called The Willie Lynch Letter.
I have it. I read that book.
Yeah,
Say
It
that
is
again. Say it. What is it called?
the Willie Lynch letter. Be sure you got to find it. It is a typical of exactly what's happening in this era that the author is talking about. It's a wet plantation owner who brought a man from Europe who came and he taught him how to desensitize and cause the black man, the slaves, to just remain subservient to their master. If you teach them this, you don't have to close the gate. They will see the gate open and they will not walk through it.
Will not go out.
Wow.
It's called the Willie Lynch letter. Finally, it's in the public discourse. You Google it, you will find it. But if you read it, you will find out it's diabolical, but it resonates with all of what we're talking about in this text.
Yep.
So last question, we're about to close. Why is it that we as human beings are so attracted to negative stereotypes, both in our culture, in our world, even though they're so hurtful? Why is it that we're so quick to believe the worst about one another? Now, sometimes there's facts to back it up. But even if the facts don't always back it up, we still are willing to go there and lump everybody together and say, this is how all blacks are. This is how all whites are. This is how Latinos are. This is how all. And I don't know that there's an answer, but I think that's a question for us to wrestle with, because that's part of our human condition today. And I think it's part of our human brokenness that I want to see the worst about my neighbor instead of the best about my neighbor. I want to believe the worst about my neighbor because that way I feel superior. Or so I say that only by way of trying to help us wrestle with this and see that it's still a part of our human tendencies today.
It is, and with your saying that, my next door neighbor let me know. He came to me and he said, I just want to share something with you that's breaking my heart. And I feel like I need to be honest and open and share it with you on how much it hurt. That his sister and her husband decided that they will not come to his house as they do every year for Christmas because he and his partner has asked them not to use the N word.
Wow.
Or talk politics at the house, but they don't use the N word like they have in the past because they no longer will allow that word to be used in their house. And the sister let them know we won't come this Christmas then.
Wow.
Now, is that sad?
That is sad. And some of that's happening across our country with people that say, you voted for Trump. I don't want to have Thanksgiving or Christmas with you too. So some of that is being carried out that way as well. Absolutely. Dr. McCauley, would you end us with a word of prayer tonight and lead us in a word of prayer that kind of helps bring us together in this time? Would you mind doing that?
Sure. Let us pray. Eternal God, our Creator, we bow with a deep sense of humility and gratitude to allow this ministry to continue, and even the question that is posed in the end help us to challenge our thinking and to make us to wrestle with the innate nature of always trying to plead to the negativity and to look for the evil that lies in each person, when in fact, if we look for the good, we can find it in everybody. But there's a tendency of always trying to gravitate to the negativity. We pray that as we examine ourselves and submit our desire, our will to your will, that during this season of Advent, that you allowed us to have some transformation as we've been challenged to wrestle with the thought, so that we would not dwell on that which is the evil that lies in each person. Even Paul talks about his own, the dichotomy of wanting to do good and evil being present, and the desire to do right is just always a struggle. Help us to look deep down within the recesses of our being that we look for the good in each of our humanity. And yet, God, we know that race becomes an issue all across this globe, particularly here in our country. Pray this season of Advent that we will anticipate something good, that we'll find the good in each person and talk about the Savior's appearance and celebration. Pray for Mr. 47, that you will revolutionize him. We know, God, you did not make mistake to allow him to usurp himself once again. Whatever it is that we need to learn about ourselves, our common patrimony, our common heritage, we thank you for this ministry that continue to foster and forge a new frontier, that we can see our common humanity, and despite our diversity, that you, Christ, have come to reconcile Greek, Jew, Gentiles, Protestant, Lutheran, Methodist, you name it. That when we all gather at that resurrection time, that blacks and white would not matter, Baptists and Presbyterian would not matter, but all of God's children, as Dr. King once talked about. Bless us as we leave this place, but never from your presence. Keep us in your ever-loving care until we meet again. This is our prayer. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, Dr. McCauley. Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Thank you, everyone. All right.
Merry Christmas.
Do we meet
Merry
again?
Christmas.
Merry
No?
Christmas.
We got some, I can give you those dates.
Okay, but we don't meet before Christmas.
Yeah, we
Uh,
do.
We do one more?
We do.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay.
So we got one more meeting for Christmas now.
Yeah, we'll be meeting at least, we'll give you the date.
Okay,
Okay.
Blessings all.
Go in peace.
Goodbye. Go in peace. Thank you. God bless.
Yep. So Rev,
Yes.
while I was at the little Christmas gathering, I was hating that I wasn't gonna get here to talk about William E. DeBose.
You got here just in time.
Oh, my goodness, I got here right after y'all finished it, right?
Yeah.
Because I tell you, when I was reading
Oh,
that,
okay.
I was like, William E. DeBose and Booker T. Washington. And what this author lifted up was how they weren't for their own race. They were for themselves.
Oh.
Each one of them was for themselves.
Oh.
That's what the author wanted.
They created an ideology that was
Blacks. They didn't like, they're black. They didn't like, first of all, William E. DeBose was interracial. Okay. So he looked white.
Yeah.
And I grew up with this. See, I grew up here in the deep South, Rev, with this dark skin, light skin war that's existed in our race. I've lived it.
Yeah.
I've been abused by it.
Right.
So I can testify to that light skin, half white, looking black, thinking that they're superior because they're closer to white. Don't give them some education. William DeBose in this book, when this what this guy pointed out, was not for.
I heard that, and I'm with you, and I almost say, oh, but
yeah,
the book also stated that both of them
didn't like each other.
No, they said both of them didn't like each other,
Didn't like each
but
other.
both of them were for black people getting their rights. In other words, they had different methods of getting that.
He said
the
it
right-
different ways, Rev.
Yeah,
He said
I said
DeBose was into the intellect, and everybody ain't born smart. Everybody ain't born with
absolutely,
intellect.
but nevertheless, he knew he was black, and he had to find a way to do. Now, if I am an intelligent black person
Mm-hmm.
and I jump up against Neil
Yeah,
during that time,
right.
they're gonna kill me.
True.
Yeah.
I have to find a way.
Before or after I sit on you?
okay.
In other words, they said
Yeah.
both of them were trying to find their equal rights.
They didn't like
But
blacks.
they
They didn't like, according to what look,
It said,
Booker T said, if you're black, even if you got the bottom position, long as you got a job,
No,
be happy.
he-
That's
right.
what the author said now.
Okay, but he
That
was
was
black,
not,
and he was teaching them to do that.
that wasn't good for us.
Pastor Jackie,
Yeah,
Pastor Leroy is right. Both of them wanted the same thing. It just the approach was different.
I know. The author didn't make them sound like what you and Leroy Pastor. Now the author didn't make these two sounds
Yeah,
like,
well, he may have not delineated in terms of providing some clarity, but both gentlemen wanted freedom for black folk.
they did, but in a
Booker T said, look, you can't fight iron with iron.
right.
Yeah.
That's Booker T's stance. Philosophically, W.E.B. Du Bois said, same thing what happened before you got here. We're talking about Back to Africa movement.
Oh yeah.
You got the Marcus Garvey group that said, look, life is hard for us here. We got to go home.
Yeah.
Henry Magnu Turner, just like Booker T, just like W.E.B. Du Bois said, no, we're going to stay here.
Right. Okay.
Our ancestors struggled to build the railroad and everything that had defined this country. We're not going anywhere. So there was that clash between these opposing views.
Okay.
And the other thing is, W.E. Du Bois also recognized that you had light-skinned black folk, and that was the top 10.
Yeah.
So that was there.
Yeah.
But all of them were black, except for that top 10 would get better treatment than the other black.
And it had something to do with intellect too.
Booker T. Washington said, look here, don't you go up against the white folk or they'll kill you. So you get this trade here and you keep building up and building up, and then you can move that way. And of course, now he was at Tuskegee. So now he's teaching them at Tuskegee, which was a prestigious school. So now you got to understand that he was teaching them what to do, but at the same time, he said, look here, don't you go get yourself killed.
True. I cracked up at the way this author.
But the author kind of like, let's say.
The author was like, y'all, they were black and they were for blacks, but at the same time, they weren't the best antidote for being black.
All right. Then he went on. Then the author went on and said, not Martin Luther King and Martin X. They didn't like each other.
And he didn't say that. He didn't say. He didn't say they didn't like each other. Basically, it wasn't read that way. It was telling you that the comparison of the two.
Actually,
how different they were.
Actually, he brought out the truth. They didn't like each other.
That's not true.
That's true.
They did not like each other.
Huh?
There were always the fight between them.
Yeah, because they had a different way. You remember Malcolm X was more violent. He was more violent.
And this other was non-violent.
And the other one was non-violent.
Right.
That's right.
And
that's the good example right there between Malcolm X and
Dr. King. Malcolm X and Dr. King.
Yeah, and Dr. King.
Okay. So
Michael wanted this violent taken by force. And MLK said, no, nonviolent movement is always the solution.
All right. And then it came to the point that this nonviolent stuff was not doing anything. Matter of fact, it was getting them killed and dogs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And here stepped up Malcolm X.
That's right.
And he said, okay, we're not going to take it anymore.
That's right.
All right. And now he's saying, Martin, I'm not really arguing with you at this point.
But I don't see it the way.
I don't see it your way, and I'm going to do it this way.
I'm going to do it this way.
And King was about to say, have at it. Because I mean, you got the dogs on me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm getting killed by dogs. All right. Then they killed Malcolm X. They rather deal with who? King.
And they killed him.
Let him live a little longer. Let him live a little longer.
Yeah.
Pastor Jackie.
Yes.
The letter to the Birmingham jail.
I read it to and fro.
It's a typical example. Most of the folk who wrote that letter to MLK were black preachers.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
So you see why you have this opposing view. Some folks say, man, you're not going too far. Some folks say you're going too far. And that was the problem.
Yeah. That's right. You're right. You're right, Dr. McCauley. That is so true. Yes. So, okay. Well.
Our hour is up. We're about to be cut off.
I'm about to get out.
Okay, Dr. McCauley, good to see you, okay?
He's not
Take care.
He's cutting the recording off.
Okay.
Hey, Zeke, what you doing with the candy all the way over there?
Zeke, you got the candy. Got the
I'm
basket.
nervous. I'm having a dark chocolate.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Zeke, for your presentation tonight. That was a good way to get started.
Yeah,
Thank you.
excellent
I
presentation.
missed it.
Reverend Cannon, keep me in the loop.
I missed it. Zeke, I missed the presentation.
It's recorded.
Y'all take care.